Hello, welcome. Happy International Women's Day. Thank you for joining us for our first ever WorldSkills Facebook Live. We're going to have a really cool conversation today with a couple of our WorldSkills Champions Trust about gender inequality in their training and in their workplaces and skills. So I would like to introduce you to everyone who will be joining us today. We're going to have Yusra Asali. We're also going to have Dan McCabe and Euphrasia Malinga joining us to talk about our experiences. But we also want to invite you to share your own experiences, ask us questions, and leave comments. If you do so below, we'll try and answer your questions, but you'll also go in the draw for a cash prize. So please comment and add your questions, and we will try and answer them later. So we're also going to be having help from Linda throughout, who's going to be fielding those questions and firing them through to us. Here she is. So let's just get right into it and start asking questions of our guests. So we're talking about gender inequality, especially in our personal experiences of vocational skills, education, and workplaces. So I guess the easiest way to start is just to ask you all about your own personal experiences. Tell us a little bit about what field you're in and whether you feel there is unequal representation in your work. So let's start with you, Euphrasia. Tell us about what you do and your experiences.
Thank you very much, Amelia. I'm an aircraft maintenance engineer in the aviation industry, and definitely my field is a male-dominated field. And when it comes to gender inequality, from a very young age, I was lucky that my father really made me understand the fact that skills have no gender. But through the years, I have come to understand and see that gender inequality is a very, very serious issue. I saw it even before enrolling into the course. A number of people would ask me questions like, what would you like to do? And I would say, I would like to be an aircraft engineer. And they'll say, isn't that a man's job? Other people would ask me, are you sure you're able to carry an engine? Other people would ask me, will you ever get a job in that field? So those were the three main questions I would get from people around. But when I went on to enroll in the course, some of the guys will indirectly point it out there to say this is not a field for ladies. And going on after graduating, trying to find a place where I can practice my skill, I noticed that some companies will just not employ women. And most companies, if they do employ women, they would actually have them work in the planning section, which is where all the paperwork and the documentation is done, as opposed to having a number of them actually doing a hands-on experience. And in the office where I actually worked, and I actually saw it, in an office of 3 ladies and 1 gentleman, you would find that when a client walks in to maybe have an inquiry or to find out how far their aircraft has gone, what is remaining, what has been done, clients would prefer to walk to the guy and to find out what is going on. But funny enough, the gentleman was not the one with the information. So the clients will have to be redirected to one of the ladies who probably has the information. So, from what I experienced and the questions that people would ask me, I came to see that I think the main reasons why we have gender inequality is probably people's mindsets and the culture. Would see it in some homes where the chores that children do are actually separated. The ladies will be given to do girly stuff and the guys will be given to do manly stuff. And from a young age, you'd find that the little one's mindset is set to say this is what is meant for the ladies and this is what is meant for the guys. We can even see it in the modern world right now with the tools, or let me say the toys that kids get. Some parents would actually prefer to buy toys, Barbie dolls and pots for the girls, and for the guys, they'll buy them cars and trucks. So at a very young age, you see that the young one is being showed to say, this is what the ladies are supposed to do, and this is what the guys are supposed to do. But the other reason, secondly, also is lack of awareness. Because for someone to come and ask me to say, are you able to carry an engine? So back in my mind, I'm like, I think this person is unaware of the equipment that are used to make your work easy. You don't have to carry the engine. You have to know how it works and be able to instruct the tools or instruct the equipment you're using to be able to make your work easy. And the other thing, for them to ask me, are you ever going to get a job? It is the state of the industry. The industry is really at a point where it is really struggling to survive. And now more than ever that COVID has hit, it is really at a state where things are not so okay. And for someone to enroll into a course, they want to be assured that at the end of the day, they are going to be able to get a job. And if the industry is not working or performing well, it makes people get discouraged to actually enter into that field, and they end up enrolling into courses that are really not their passion. So this is what I would say was my experience and the reasons that I have found for gender inequality.
Man, you raised so many good points, and I have so many follow-up questions to ask you about your own experience, because I think it was probably something that lots of people can relate to in their industries. But before we get to more follow-up questions, I want to hear about how that might be similar or different to the others' experiences in work. So, Yusra, do you feel like any of that crosses over to what you do? And can you tell us a little bit about what you do? And yes, share how it may be similar or different to Euphrasia.
Thank you, Amelia. Yeah, definitely. So my skills first is electronics, an area of industry that is obviously dominated by men. In the beginning, as my interest heard that I want to pursue an industry skills, they were pretty worried about like how gonna be my future, like that it's not the best choice for me as a girl. When I first went to my institute to enroll, the instructor told me that that's a technical skills, and you are a girl. Like, are you able to do it? I don't recommend you to do so. So nowadays, still people do not advise you to choose a skills based on your abilities, but on your gender. Even after I joined my institute, when I first looked for my internships, companies rejected me without even giving me a chance to be interviewed, just because I'm a girl. And right after I graduate, there weren't a lot of opportunities for me because they thought that I'm not enough qualified. And they even once told me, if we are going to recruit someone, we prefer to employ a man rather than a woman. So after after expertise these skills, I was always wondering why like they categorize it to men rather than women. So that's why I will come back like to your phrase, just idea about like this is just a mind of mindset and culture that that it's not that it's not a matter of abilities, and that honestly, as people trying to convince me to change it, as I become more determined to do it and carry it through the end. Like, I was always thinking like, if there is no woman role model, I will be the one. If no woman have entered this field before, I will be the first one to be.
It's super inspiring that you both have had so much determination to carry on with fields when you faced so much, so many challenges and so many naysayers. So I guess I want to talk about that a bit more a little bit later on. But Dan, let's hear about your experience. you actually also work in a male-dominated field typically. So why don't you tell us a little bit about it and how your experiences maybe being similar or different, or tell us about what you do.
Yeah, so first of all, I'm a 3D game developer, so making games for like Xbox, PlayStation, and PC and stuff like that, right? So I'm making the games that everyone's sort of playing. And it's this subject's like a really important one for our industry and one that's growing a lot, especially with the women in games movement and stuff like that. It's completely biased towards men, and that's partially due to maybe a lack of interest within like people. Like that's kind of the stereotype, right? It's like you think maybe girls aren't really into games, but that can't be further from the case. Like if you actually look at who plays the games, like it's very even down the middle. It's a little bit biased towards men, but the mobile sector especially allows you to realize that, you know, it's pretty 50-50 split for the most part in terms of who's actually playing the games. But who's making them, it couldn't be, you know, further from reality, a 50-50 split, unfortunately. 75% of game developers are men. That's just how it is, unfortunately. And women, like, it's a shame because when you're working in an industry, like having a woman in your team and stuff can provide like a really nice perspective. So I've worked in multiple teams over the years and stuff, and I found myself more creative when I'm surrounded by women in my team because they have different ideas to guys. You know, you kind of hear the same stuff over and over, but different personalities bring different perspectives, and you know, different genders bring different perspectives as well. And I think having that around me has allowed me to push myself further as an artist. But in the past, maybe I didn't realize that 'cause, I didn't have the opportunity to work alongside them. I mean, personally, I work within art, so that's a little bit better. There's 70%, so it's a 5% swing, which isn't, you know, that significant, but you know, it helps a little bit, I guess. Unfortunately for programmers, so the people who are like writing the code and stuff, 90% of those developers are men, which is just crazy to me. And it is a shame, but you know, the women equality isn't an issue for just women. It's an issue for all people until we're equal. Like none of us are equal. We need to make sure that we're working together to try and resolve that, and you know, try and diversify hires and try and encourage people to get into the skill more if they're not already, and you know, and realize that those perspectives are valued.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Those are quite some interesting stats about how far it swings in male dominated in your field. Something that you sort of picked up on a little bit is like getting more women into the skill. And I think Yusra and Euphrasia also talked about that as well, regarding kind of, I guess, sort of something I picked up from all of you was maybe a bit of exposure and understanding of what's actually involved in the skill. Do you think that, and this is, I guess, for anyone, do you think that as people within the skills, but also as just adults who maybe have a bit more perspective on what a job actually involves, do you think that we have a responsibility for children to kind of show them what different jobs involve, to kind of encourage them based on their abilities, like you said, Yusra, rather than just what's male or female? And how could we do that? How could we encourage young children to explore something a little bit different outside of what is sort of told to them that they can do?
I think listening to Euphrasia's story about how she was almost like discouraged from it by like people around her and stuff, like that's a mindset we need to get out of. And I think in this like moving world and changing world, I think that's perspectives hopefully that will over time get almost weaned out of our societies and stuff as things like this happen, and you know, people start to become more aware of issues and things like that. It's a similar thing for race as well, right? How you know, it's becoming more you know, shined upon, like, you know, the spotlight kind of thing. So hopefully you know, maybe when we're raising our kids and stuff like that, people watching this and stuff like that going forward over time, it will kind of evolve more and people will realized that, you know, it's our job to encourage people to follow their passions, not necessarily their stereotypes.
Euphrasia, you mentioned in your experience that you were really lucky from a young age that your dad encouraged you to sort of gain an interest in this. Like, how did having a father or a parent encourage you into something that was a little bit different? How was that experience for you, and how did that sort of shape what you do now?
To answer your question, you see, at a little age, kids are more attached to their parents, and some part of it the school. So because this is my dad who I was very comfortable with, and you know, at a young age, I could like maybe totally break whatever he was fixing, but he was lenient enough to allow me work around his work area. You see, I didn't know everything. I did not understand all the tools that were there, but he just welcomed me to be there because there was a little interest that I showed whenever he was working, whether servicing the car, fixing anything around the house. And I was there sometimes to pass on the tools. And with time, I even started to know some of the tools, and it became even more helpful for him because he would send me to say, okay, do you remember this? Go and get this from that place. So from a young age, I just understood to say skills have no gender. Like, you can totally be what you want to be. And I feel from what Dan just said, like, parents and the school should definitely work together. Parents should be there to encourage and to support their kids through their passions. And the school, when it comes to guiding the children in their careers, they should be there to offer a very wide platform for both the ladies and the guys, for them to be able to choose their passion, which is taking probably careers day very, very seriously. Careers day shouldn't just be them dressing up like, I want to be a doctor, I want to be that. If they can be in that work environment, they can try and understand certain things much better. Last time we talked about you cannot be what you cannot see. So they need to be able to see, to imagine who they would be if they're in that position. And that's what my dad gave for me.
Yeah, I really like that. That's such a good way of putting it, is you can't be what you can't see. Like, you don't know what you don't know. So I definitely think we have a responsibility to kind of share the ins and outs of our different skills and professions, because we might inspire other people who had never thought of it to take it up and try it. And there definitely is a responsibility for us to do that, but also schools and parents. So I want to ask you, Yusra, like, you are in a field that you said is male dominated, and you obviously sort of chose to challenge that. What inspired you to pursue your career, and what did give you the determination to keep going, that self-motivation to say that you were going to be the woman who would inspire others? It must have been pretty challenging. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it is. So electronics or technology in general was my passion from my childhood, and like, this is what I wanted to be like from the beginning. And to be honest, like, the fact that people were trying to convince me to change it, that what empowered me to actually keep like working on it and keep like and pursuing my dream. So that is like the major factor that helped me like to pursue my dream. And also I will add, like, to what Euphrasia said, is that also we have to recognize like the woman, like the woman, like, of role models of women within the sector that is mainly dominated by men. Because actually, when we don't recognize it, we think that boys are better than this field because they are smart in technology or in science, because they haven't seen enough women leading that field. So yeah.
Yeah, you're so right. Like, we need to make sure that there's more positive role models that will kind of inspire young women. And I'm sure you're one of those role models, like you set out to achieve. We've actually been getting lots of comments and lots of people wishing us well. So thank you all for joining us, those of you who are listening in and adding your comments. Please do add some questions, because we'd love to be able to answer them as well. You will go in the chance, I guess, in the draw to win a cash prize if you enter some questions or comments. So please send those through. For the meantime, I guess we'll just carry on in our conversation.
I've got a question for you, Amelia, if you want.
Okay. Yes, go.
You're a florist. I'd like to know a little bit more about what the gender situation's like within your sector, because I imagine you have a similar story to the rest of us.
Yeah, so mine, in where I live in New Zealand, is a little bit different in the fact that in my country, my field is very female dominated. I know in different parts of the world that's quite different with floristry, but in New Zealand it's very female dominated. And I think I can agree with all of you in the sense of, I think part of why it is female dominated is that exposure and understanding actually of what it is. So often I get the assumption that my job is just playing with flowers, and it's maybe not taken so seriously. And I don't know if that's anything to do with the fact that it is maybe female dominated. But I specialize in weddings and wedding floristry. And the way that I think about what I do is not just making flowers, but is creating an environment so that people can better enjoy the event. So my job isn't just to put some flowers on a table or make a bouquet. It's, to create an environment in which people can have the really cool shared experience and memory together. And the more that I talk about it this way, the more engagement I get from men as well. And it's quite interesting. When I first started, I found that if I would have a wedding consultation, it would often be just the bride who would come and who would talk about it. But, and the groom wouldn't maybe have so much interest in being part of the wedding flowers. But the more that I sort of talk about it as environment and creating a special space for their wedding day, I'm actually getting a lot more interest from grooms as well. One example I had is of a wedding where they wanted to have sort of a whiskey man cave lounge, and I was speaking with the groom about how we could have moss and make it really sort of overgrown and kind of rustic, and he really liked that idea, and it helped make his wedding day better. So I guess to circle back, the point I think is again, like what you talk about in each of your fields, is kind of that understanding of what it is you actually do, rather than the just surface level stereotype of what the job involves. Like the more that we can sort of explain, this is what I actually do and this is what it involves, it can engage other people who may not have sort of thought to have an interest in it before. And I guess if we start sort of looking at what the particular skills are in jobs, it can kind of, who would have thought that a florist and a 3D game developer would have anything in common in their jobs? Like one's in reality and one's in virtual, but we're both creating environments, aren't we, in our work? You and me, Dan, it's there is quite a bit of similarity. Like you wouldn't have really thought of that before, but once you start kind of looking at those different things, you can say, oh, I have an interest in creating an environment and creating a space. Maybe I would find game design interesting, and then I can start having a look into that. So
it's like all skills have like the kind of, like you said, the surface level understanding from most people, and it's like, oh, they look at it and they just make an assumption, but the saying, never judge a book by its cover, and that couldn't be more correct in this case, because me and you, when we're in person together and stuff, we always talk about design and things like that, because it's the fundamentals of our skills, it's the understanding of it rather than the surface level. There's way more to to doing something as a career than maybe just what the surface looks like.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that one thing that can often be commented about some skills is, you know, maybe can put women off as they think, oh, it's not creative. But I guess for different skills, say like yours, Euphrasia, it would be really easy, or even you, Yusra, someone could assume, oh, aircraft maintenance, that's not creative, or you know, electronics, that's not creative. But I imagine you both have to do a lot of creative problem solving in your work. Would you say that that's true?
Yes, it's definitely true.
Yeah.
So
You have
I
to
think
be very creative.
yeah, so there's lots of different ways to explore your creativity or your problem solving, or different skills that you have. And so I think the more awareness we create about skills, the more that might encourage women to pursue male dominated skills, but also for men to think, oh, maybe floristry would be something that I would enjoy. Maybe I would like to work outside and help create environments, you know. So yeah, thanks for asking me about mine, Dan. One thing that we're sort of at WorldSkills doing for International Women's Day this year is using the hashtag Choose to Challenge. So I kind of want to ask you each about that a bit more. What does like choose to challenge mean for you, and how are you going to choose to challenge gender inequality this International Women's Day? Yusra, do you?
Yeah. So my choose to challenge is simply as like pursuing your dream, live the career life like you want or you choose, not the one chosen by the others, and like just keep working on yourself and be the role model that you always wanted to be or always wanted to see. So that would be so.
Cool. And Euphrasia, what does choose to challenge mean for you?
Choose to challenge for me, I would actually divert it a little bit by saying, for me, it actually really began at a point where I enrolled into this course and I discovered the ratio of men to women in this field. So, definitely I told myself, working hard, succeeding, and seeking opportunities like we have today, where we can share our stories to, encourage other women to seek skills. But not only that, I also choose to challenge actually more women to rise and to seek opportunities to become leaders in decision making platforms. Why I say so is I believe one gender's strength could be the other gender's weakness. So, for example, between me and Dan in the decision-making platform, if Dan is good at bringing ideas that can make the money, I could probably be good at making the budgeting to make that plan run. So, at the end of the day, I need Dan, and Dan needs me for us to actually be able to succeed. So we need each other. That would be my choose to challenge.
Awesome. And Dan, how do you choose to challenge?
Yeah, quickly following on from Euphrasia's point as well about, and that works, both ways. She could definitely be the ideas person, and I could run the finances and stuff. It's important that we, we choose to challenge our own perspectives on what it is we do. Do you know what I mean? Like these stereotypes that we're brought up with is just as I learn more and more about the world and the workplace and my own skill, like I realize that I think if you're good at a skill, you don't know much about it. You can understand how it works and stuff, but you learn something new every day. And yeah, I'm going to choose to challenge my own perspective and seek out everyone else's, and just always be listening and trying to learn from everybody, regardless of their background, gender or race or whatever it may be, because You know, everyone has their own perspectives and their own way of looking at things, and that kind of variance is what allows us to come up with good ideas that, you know, make the world better.
Yeah, for sure. So you're choosing the challenge. We're going to be our own role models. We are going to challenge our own perspectives, and then we're also going to challenge ourselves. Fraser, you said, to be like our own champions and push ourselves into those roles that we may not have before. And I think, yeah, I agree with all of those. I'm going to challenge myself to look more into, like you said, Dan, different skills and different perspectives, and kind of not just rely on my surface assumptions of what something is. And push myself to kind of look a little bit deeper into things. I think that that's a really good one. So something that we haven't talked about yet, which is obviously something that we're all going through at the moment, is the world is going through this massive pandemic. And we know that like women have been more severely affected than men. How have you seen that in your own workplaces or countries, women being disproportionately affected by the COVID-19 pandemic? Is that something that you've seen, or something that you have anything to comment about?
I think for me, when I'm like looking around, I'm very privileged in my industry that, you know, we can adapt to working from home and stuff. So the actual physical impact of it is negligible. However, the indirect impact on business and the economy and stuff is definitely visible. I mean, from a personal perspective, I don't have statistics on the whole country and stuff, but a lot of entrepreneurs and people who run their own businesses that I know, for example, maybe going back to another stereotype here, but hairdressing and things like that, people who own their own businesses doing that, or the beauty sector and stuff, which is dominated by women entrepreneurs and stuff. That industry has been hit significantly hard, and some people that I know in my personal life have had to close their businesses and things like that, and hopefully they reopen and bounce back. But it's hard to see. You know, you see someone put their heart and soul into things, and something as abhorrent as this can you know, uproot years and years of foundational work. And I just all my thoughts and hopes go to people who have been affected, being able to recover swiftly and sharply.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think as well, I've sort of been thinking about how women can be a bit underrepresented in certain skills, and how that affects their ability to be able to continue to do business. I know in my field that, you know, being female dominated and being events based industry, lots of entrepreneurs have had to close their business or have been out of work in a field that is female dominated. So I think that's definitely relatable to lots of parts of the world where women are more represented in some of those industries. How has it affected things in your country, Fraser?
Personally, as an owner of a small business, I have been affected by the COVID, because unfortunately I'm unable to travel. I'm unable to make the contacts and the connections that I'm supposed to make. So business has been very slow. I could literally not travel. And if I still get to travel, or I still get to have orders, the delay in receiving or ordering is so much, and so it really plays a very huge impact when it comes to the finances. But what I've noticed in my country is that because of the long period that the schools had to close down, and the kids had to be back home, so it has been noticed that there has been a rise in pregnancies with the ladies because of staying back home during this COVID times. Most school-going children, the ladies, most of them are found to be pregnant. And obviously, even when schools reopen with time, they would have to get back home to go and nurse the children. So that, I think, is what I personally have noticed when it comes to the schools in my country.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yusra, have you noticed or experienced how it has affected women differently in your part of the world?
Well, for Morocco, I noticed that for field like nursery or like kindergarten, so here in Morocco is like female dominated. So as we have to quarantine, so obviously it's closed. So those women end up like to quit their job, and that actually really affected like a lot of women, like especially for those who are single mothers or like who take the responsibility of their family. So it was like so hard for them.
Yeah, so lots of women are being taken out of the workplace. I've just seen below we have a question from our audience. So we'll continue talking about this soon, but let's get Linda here, get Linda in, and she can ask us all a question from the audience. Hi, Linda.
Hi, this is so inspiring. Thank you. Thank you all for sharing your stories. So a lot of great comments from people who say thank you for sharing. Diana from Costa Rica says thanks for challenging traditional ideas and challenging the world to change. She's happy to listen to you champions. We do have a question from Kieran, and I'm gonna show the question. I think I can click this. Oh, so fancy. So Kieran wants to know, question for any of the champions, have any of you that struggled to be accepted in your sector helped others follow suit? Perhaps you inspired another woman to enter the field. I'd love to hear a story on that. So maybe I'll put that to, well, whoever wants to jump in, but Amelia or Euphrasia or Yusra, I think maybe one of you can speak to this.
Yeah, I mean, my field is in New Zealand more female dominated, so it's easy for me to encourage people to enter the floristry sector. I think where maybe it would be a little bit different in my instance is I also run a small business with my partner, and he's a mechanic, an automotive mechanic. So that's a more male dominated field. So I sort of have been a part of a few groups on Facebook and Instagram which encourage in New Zealand female tradies, and there's some cool some support groups in there which encourage women to sort of stick together, but also inspire young girls to pursue different sort of traditional call them like tradie jobs in New Zealand. So I've been sort of a part of a few of those groups, which are quite cool. Euphrasia or Yusra, have you experienced this at all?
Well, I have the chance to inspire a woman. So after the WorldSkills international competition, I went to my institute, and there was like 2 girls who just came to enroll for the first time, and they were like pretty confused of what to choose. And then like I was asking them what you love to do, and they are quite similar to mine. So they said, no, I will not do it because it's man dominated. And then when I talked to them about my experience and about Kazan, like they were so inspired, and there was like, okay, so then let's do it. Like if you could make it, we can make it. So yeah.
That's great. We do have another question from Jacqueline. This question is for Euphrasia or Yusra, so maybe we'll go to Euphrasia first. Since you've started your skills journey, has that stereotypical behavior in your environment been broken down? Or are you still facing challenges based on your gender regularly? Euphrasia, can you answer this question?
Sure. I wouldn't say I'm facing this challenge regularly, but every day of my life, every time I'm in my workplace, I always and always try to break down the stereotypical type of idea about women. Like, you cannot set a path for me. I have the things that I'm passionate about and what I would love to do. If you're able to do something, I'm definitely able to do it. If I do not know, I'm sure I can learn to do it. And I'm very open to learn.
Yusra, do you still face challenges based on your gender regularly?
Not really. I will say that not regularly. Like, people here start accepting like more or less like female in the skills, especially when you talk about your expertise. Like, when you talk about your skills, your capacities, your abilities, like they are kind of convinced that you are able like to pursue in these skills.
Great. So I'm just going to show one comment before we send it back to Amelia. But Jose says that WorldSkills is more than just medals. And I think you guys are really proving that right now in the work that you do every day, and also this discussion ahead of International Women's Day. So be sure, everyone, to leave your comments. We are giving away prizes for people who leave questions and comments for our champions, but there's still a bit of discussion left to be had, inspiration to be had. So I will pop off and leave it back to Amelia.
Awesome, cool. Thanks, Linda. Those are some really good questions that we got through. And hearing both of you speak just then sort of was making me think a bit about how you both sort of said that you're not experiencing so much difficulties regularly anymore, that it was a lot at the beginning and a lot of getting into it. So it makes me think, like, would you say it's sort of from your own experiences, the biggest challenge was getting into the skill, like getting into study, getting into your workplace? But once you sort of were able to get past that barrier, things got a lot better. I mean, obviously there's still challenges you both spoke about in work, but do you think that sort of getting over that major first hurdle has been the hardest part for you?
I'll definitely say so. And for me, actually, I think everything changed the moment we just wrote our first year exam and we got our results, and seeing how we fared. And actually, some guys actually would nickname me and call me to say "man among men." Like, I'm a woman, but they would refer to me as she's like a man among men, kind of like that, to say, like, to not undermine her. She can do exactly what the men can do. And it's, once you get in the thing and you're able to graduate and to succeed, you just have definitely proven to them to say, even women can do this.
Yeah, I
Yusra,
totally agree.
Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. Like with you, Fraser, that the first step like is always hard. Like, after like being in a sort of position, like you actually prove them that you are able to be on you are able to pursue that skills. And like, by hearing that you are like representing your country in different international competition, or like doing a lot of projects, like you are sort of convincing them that you are actually in the good place.
Cool. So I have a question for you, Dan, kind of around this topic. Maybe you can have some insight. So both you, Fraser, and you were talking about, like that first step or that first part of the process was the hardest and it was the challenge, and then things got easier for them. But they both used the word that they had to prove themselves, or, the phrase they had to prove themselves. Once they had done this, then they were accepted, or once I had competed here, they could see I could do it. Like, what do you think, how can we encourage men to not feel like that women have to prove that they can do what they can do? Like, how can we sort of change men's perspectives about women's capabilities? Maybe you have an example of in your work, or just some idea or thoughts of, how can we change that so that women don't feel like they have to prove themselves to be just at the same level as men, having that first hurdle, if we're trying to encourage them to get into something.
Yeah, I people and men who are like that, I don't identify with that way of thinking at all. I think it's wrong and a foreign concept, and luckily it's something that within the art industry, I know it in other sectors it isn't the same, as we've just heard, but within our sector, usually, like, if I want to stereotype it the other way, women are usually way better than guys when they decide to do our skill. They're just so on it, and usually they show up and they just make a fool of the guys, and we're just like, teachers. And it's really nice to see that, like, in a workplace and stuff, where every time I've seen like girls and stuff come in, like, it's just been a pleasure to have them. We're just grateful. Maybe where we lack is on the actual side when it comes to gaming. Obviously, a lot of the how would you say, the things that would encourage you and inspire you to get into this kind of skill. As a gamer, it's kind of stereotyped the other way, that our gamers who are girls aren't very good, similarly to football, right? It's kind of like it's a guy's thing, stereotypically. And I think then having that, I think it's at that point we need to solve that, because if we discourage girls from playing games, then we're going to by proxy, we're discouraging them from wanting to make them, because if they don't want to play them, why would they want to help make them? So I think it's more about the whole general consensus. Developers don't have that mindset, but I think gamers and the actual people playing the games do have that, that attitude you're talking about, and that whole, like, they feel like the girl needs to prove themselves, and by default they're looked down on, and it's wrong, and I don't like it at all, but and I don't endorse it at all as a developer or as a gamer. But it's nice to see when girls do show up in any light, whether it's like casual or like try hard gaming and stuff like that. They're having fun. That's what it's about. Our industry and the whole sector is about fun. And as soon as you get past the idea that it's a win or lose mentality, it's just let's have fun playing the game, because at the end of the day, a win or a loss is usually the result of playing the game. It's it's the journey, not necessarily the destination. And maybe getting males' mindsets out of that destination and more on, like, have you actually had fun playing the game with each other? That's more important, and something that we should look more at. And that's something that I think is growing as years go by. That girls are more than welcome to play games, and usually they do, and they usually kick us pretty hard.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, I see from Linda that we actually have another question from our audience. So, Linda, what have we got?
Yeah, so here's a fun comment I want to share first. As Rakesh says, WorldSkills is #1. Yes, it is. We have some greetings from Ghana. Thank you for joining.
Hello, Ghana.
And then we have a question here from Diana, who says, in Costa Rica, we are working to motivate more girls to enter spaces that have historically been for men. How do you think institutions, schools, and governments can support this? So just want to hear your perspective on what your local governments, what your schools can do to encourage more women to maybe go into more of those untraditional spaces or untraditional trades or skilled trades. Can we start with you, Frasier?
Sure. I think they should, when Yusra spoke about being a role model, probably right now there is maybe few role models that have not been recognized. So out of the few that are already in the industry, those few really have to be recognized, and they really have to continue raising awareness. It is only talks like this that people actually get to start knowing certain things, and sometimes even start to feel comfortable to say, oh, it's okay for women to be in such fields. So they should definitely raise awareness and celebrate and recognize the women who are in those industries already.
Great. Does anyone else want to add to that?
I would say like marketing and stuff like that when you're advertising like stuff. I know the army in this country is really good for it. Recently, they've had a lot of advertisements, and the people that you feature in an advertisement is who you relate to, right? It's like you want to picture yourself doing that job. And if I'm trying to promote my industry with an advertisement or something on whatever platform you decide to do it on, if I decide to only show guys doing that thing, then girls are going to automatically be like, well, it's not for me. Then this isn't an advertisement targeted towards me. So I think if you market yourself as a skill for everyone, then you're going to, attract everybody. And I think it's important that, and I think it's something that I think a lot of marketing teams around the world are doing really well at the moment. And I think it's something we need to keep doing, and areas still need improving on. But it's always nice to see an advert in like a male dominated industry and seeing girls like, doing the skill, and it's being like, you know what, this isn't a guy thing, this is an everyone thing. Because that is it. This isn't an issue for women, this is an issue for people. This is an issue for everybody.
Yeah, can I add on to this as well? I think I totally agree with Euphrasia and Dan that there is definitely like that exposure and encouraging women into these different skills is like a big part. But I also think there's an extra consideration that institutions and schools and governments need to have is not only encouraging, but just around like access and availability in terms of whether that's like financial support, but even just things of like considerations of childcare while somebody's studying. Like if somebody wants to retrain and then go back to school and learn a new skill, but they've got young children, how can we make that easier for women to get back into that study? Can there be childcare there at the school? Some of those kind of considerations, that's just like one example, but I think that there's sort of, highlighting the different skills and pathways through role models and marketing, like the others mentioned, but then also the consideration about making it more accessible for women to actually be able to study, I think is really important too.
Perfect. So the final comment that I'll share before I get off again is from Kate. And Kate says, great to hear from you inspirational champions. So thanks for tuning in, Kate.
Thanks, Kate.
All right, so I'm gonna give it back to you, Amelia.
Thanks, Linda. She's been making our life very much easier, hasn't she? Getting all the questions ready for us. So thanks heaps, Linda. We're sort of getting near to the end of our time. So I guess we'll sort of start to wrap up a little bit. But before I do that, I just wanted to ask each of you if there's anything like final that you want to share before we finish this morning, maybe a final call to action of a choose to challenge, or just a general final remark that any of you have for International Women's Day.
I do have something.
Yeah, go, Euphrasia.
Like I already said, that we are each other's strength. Just to echo what Dan said, to say it is not about the prize, but it's about the journey. So I would ask that as we celebrate Women's Day, we are not out there trying to take from men, no, but we just want to find a place, a common ground with them. We want to learn from them, and we also like them to accept us in the fields that are actually dominated by them, so that we can work together, because we need each other to succeed.
Awesome. Yusra, do you have any final comments, thoughts, takeaways that you want to share?
Well, I agree like with Euphrasia's points that actually that it's not about like putting women like in the extra level, but just to be like the same as, to be recognized, to be the same as the men's, and like to be equal, I can say. So yeah.
Awesome. And Dan, do you have anything final you want to share with everyone?
Yeah, maybe have a look at the people around you and in your life, and maybe friends and acquaintances that you know who maybe don't share the same mindset we all have here about the whole equality within women in industries and stuff, and reach out to them and try and maybe rationalize their thinking a little bit and share what you've maybe learned today or in the past, and try and help be part of the change that we want to see.
Awesome. So thank you all for joining me this morning. Your personal experiences and stories are really inspiring, and I think that you all have quite a unique viewpoint to bring to this conversation. And I know that all of our people who have been watching and commenting and leaving questions also have their own stories and viewpoints. So I really encourage you to share them. Those people who have in that draw to win cash prize. So just a little reminder about that. But yeah, thank you all for being part of this conversation this morning. I think the main things that I took away from what you were speaking about was I really liked what you said, Yusra, about being our own role models. I think that that's a good takeaway. And sort of you, Fraser and Dan, you echoed that in your own ways about looking at yourself and your environment, and sort of encouraging other people to challenge themselves as well, as I think is something that we can all do this, not just International Women's Day, but just going forward. And sort of showing young people all the different things that are involved in different jobs and encouraging them to follow their passions and their abilities, not just their stereotypes. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining us, and just reminding everybody to choose to challenge this International Women's Day, and thank you all for joining us for our very first Facebook Live. So have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much for being a part of it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.